Namaskar viewers, hello and welcome to Sansad TV. I'm Tina Jha, you're watching Perspective. On the show today, we turn our focus to the ongoing visit of Chinese Foreign Minister Mr. Wang Yi to India. A visit being closely watched not just in New Delhi and Beijing but around the world. On Monday, Mr. Wang Yi met External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, who underlined that India-China relations must rest on the three pillars of mutual respect, mutual sensitivity and mutual interest. He stressed that moving forward from a difficult phase will require a candid and constructive approach from both sides. At the 24th round of special representative level talks on Tuesday, National Security Advisor Ajit Doval also pointed to an upward trend in bilateral engagements, noting that borders have remained quiet, peace and tranquility have prevailed, and interactions between the two countries are becoming more substantial. And for his part, the Chinese Foreign Minister acknowledged that recent setbacks were not in the interests of either nation. He emphasized that the October 2024 meeting between President Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Narendra Modi in Kazan had provided a new direction to bilateral ties and fresh impetus to efforts at resolving the boundary question. So what does this moment mean for the future of India-China relations? Can this visit of Mr. Wang Yi to India truly mark a new phase of cooperation between the two Asian giants? And what should we expect from Prime Minister Modi's upcoming visit to China for the SCO Summit? We'll discuss these aspects and much more with an illustrious panel. So let me begin by introducing the guest to you. With me in the studio is Mr. Ghulam Ali. He's a member of parliament. He represents the BJP in the Rajya Sabha. Glad to have you with us on the broadcast, Mr. Ali. Next to him is Professor Srikanth Kondrapalli. He's Professor, Center for East Asian Studies, School of International Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University. Professor, glad to have you with us on the broadcast as well. Welcome to Sansad TV. Joining us virtually is Mr. D.P. Srivastav, former Ambassador and Distinguished Fellow, Vivekananda International Foundation. Ambassador, welcome to the program. Let me begin the conversation with the guests in the studio, beginning with you, Mr. Ali. How do you look at the ongoing visit of Mr. Wang Yi in context of the improving India-China relations?
देखिए, चाइना हमारा पड़ोसी है और वाजपेयी जी कहा करते थे कि आप पड़ोसी को चेंज नहीं कर सकते. बीच में चाइना और इंडिया के भारत के थोड़े ताल्लुकात में लद्दाख बाउंड्री पे थोड़ी तल्खी आ गई थी और हमारी सेनाओं ने उसको पूरा कवर करा था चीज़ों को. लेकिन इसके साथ साथ चाइना और भारत का बिजनेस में बहुत बड़ा पार्टनरशिप है. जैसा कि आपने कहा फॉरेन मिनिस्टर साहब ने कि म्यूचुअल रिस्पेक्ट भी होनी चाहिए, ट्रस्ट भी होना चाहिए, इनसेंसिटिविटीज़ मतलब उनका भी सेंसिटिविटीज़ का और इनसेंसिटिविटीज़ को दोनों को बैलेंस रख के और आगे बढ़ना चाहिए हमें. देखिए, जो मौजूदा सरकार है दिल्ली में एनडीए की, जिसकी रहनुमाई नरेंद्र मोदी जी करते हैं, बेसिक मकसद है एनडीए का कि भारत पहले. तो भारत की नेशनल इंटरेस्ट के साथ हम कोई भी समझौता नहीं करते. हमारा सिक्योरिटी हो, जहाँ सॉवरेनिटी हो, हम उस पर कतन किसी के साथ भी अपना समझौता नहीं करते. हाँ, इसके साथ साथ जो अभी रिसेंटली हमारे रिलेशंस में इम्प्रूवमेंट्स आई हैं, इसमें हम कंस्ट्रक्टिव जो डायलॉग है, इकोनॉमिक पार्टनरशिप्स हैं, मतलब डिफेंस में है, टेक्नोलॉजी में है, डिफरेंट क्षेत्र में है, इसमें हम आगे बढ़ सकते हैं.
Sure, we'll continue to talk about how this momentum and the current phase in ties can take this relationship forward. Professor, recent statements both from the National Security Advisor Mr. Ajit Doval and our External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar indicate there's an upward trend in improved relations, especially in the last 9 months, especially after the Kazan talks between Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping. The NSA spoke about quiet borders, substantive talks. How do you see, or how significant are these factors in the larger arc of the India-China bilateral relations, which we saw went on a downward trend, especially since June 2020 when the Galwan clash happened?
I think Foreign Minister Wang Yi's visit is very significant because of the last 9 months of the trend that included Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri's visit to Beijing and Mr. Ajit Doval, the National Security Advisor, in December for the special representative meeting. Later it was once again by Mr. Vikram Misri as well as Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh visit in June for the SCO Defense Ministerial meeting. There was a meeting between Admiral Tung Chun, the Chinese Defense Minister, and the Indian Defense Minister in June. That was useful because of the military mobilization on the borders and the disengagement process that was began during October 23rd last year, meeting between the two sides. We also had Dr. Jaishankar's visit last month and the current visit by Foreign Minister Wang Yi. So I think these visits are important to understand each other and initiate a kind of communication between the two sides, number one. Number two, we used to have about 30 dialogue processes between Foreign Ministry, Defense Ministry, HRD Ministry, Education Ministry, between finance ministries, the two finance ministries, the Niti Aayog and NDRC in China. We have a youth dialogue, we have think tank to think tank, media to media, so many, about 30 dialogues we used to have. All of these have been shut down. So Mr. Wang Yi's visit rekindles that we will have probably in near future, these dialogues to be recommenced. Right. So I think that is very important because 1.4 billion each people cannot shut down the communication process. We have laid down a few red lines, as Dr. Jaishankar mentioned on June 17, 2020, 2 days after Galwan. Unless until peace and tranquility prevails on the border, we will not have bilateral relations. A very clear message from the Indian Foreign Minister, and we stuck to that for the past 4.5 years. And I think the Chinese now realize that it is actually very costly for shutting down the bilateral relations. Because we have had the promises in Wuhan and in Mahabalipuram in 2018 and 2019 for the resolution or keeping the border stability. President Xi promised that, but we have had the problems on the border, as you mentioned, June 15, 2020. So the visit is important because we now rekindle those dialogue processes between the two sides.
Certainly. Peace and tranquility is something that India set as a prerequisite for the bilateral engagement. Ambassador, fortunately, what the National Security Advisor, following his meeting with Mr. Wang Yi, has said, and it comes as good news, is that the borders are now quiet. Peace and tranquility have prevailed at least over the last 9 months. What does this indicate, especially in context of the confidence building measures between India and China?
You know, the border relations have to be seen in the long-term perspective. There has definitely been improvement since Galwan, and it is hoped that the visit of Chinese Foreign Minister to India, and this will be followed by our Prime Minister for SCO Summit, will further reinforce this trend. But we have to wait and watch how this impacts on a long-term basis. And we also have to keep in mind the contemporary international situation, which is in a state of flux, both for China and for India. China is having internal problems. Economy has slowed down, and it has a difficult relationship with US, and we are going through a similar phase. So I think this will be in this probably is one of the immediate reason which has brought about a convergence in their position. And we do hope that we can build on it on a lasting basis.
Okay, since we're talking about building hope, Professor, I'll come back to you and try and understand. You said 1.4 billion people cannot shut down on China. We know as two large economies in Asia, two large economies in the world, we are interconnected. There is a positive momentum that has been generated through consistent efforts over the last few months. How can this new phase of positive engagement now expand to further cooperation in areas of trade, of connectivity and regional stability also?
We do not know. We are just building the blocks right now after the disastrous June 2020 incident where 20 Indian soldiers were killed and China said 4 of their soldiers were killed. So we do not know because we are still in the discussion phase at the moment, and we have actually a lot of differences on all of these issues. So for instance, trade, for example, cumulatively in the last 20 years, China had $1.4 trillion of surplus over India in the bilateral trade. In other words, when President Trump was imposing a lot of tariffs because there is unfavorable balance of trade, we could have also resorted to some kind of pressure on the trade issues. But we did not. We stuck to the WTO market economy status, and we allowed the Chinese goods to enter into the Indian market. China did not show any one of those favors to India. For example, none of our software companies have functioned in China. They were not able to sell their products, and none of our pharmaceutical companies could be allowed into the China market. Even though we produce a lot of generic drugs, and there are 180 million liver patients in China. When they come to India, they pick up individually much of these medicines. So there is a problem in terms of the market economy status for China, yet we allowed them to function in the Indian market. So these need to be resolved, market status, because Foreign Minister Wang Yi himself mentioned about no trade protectionism. So they need to open up based on this. Secondly, while peace and tranquility overall prevails on the border, we have not had de-escalation and de-induction so far. As we are talking now, there is at least 70,000 Chinese troops on the border in the Ladakh sector alone, the Aksai Chin Ladakh sector alone. So that poses concern because we do not know what is for tomorrow. What is the situation for tomorrow? So fingers crossed on those issues.
Let's hope that the positive momentum generates some fruitful results in context of improved India-China relations. But as a member of Parliament, which are the areas that you would see both neighbors perhaps building their relationship or sort of resetting their ties back into trade, technology, regional security? Which are the areas where India should focus more particularly on with China?
देखिए, बहुत खूबसूरत कहा आपने कि हमारा प्री कंडीशंस हैं, जैसे आपने कहा कि डोवाल साहब ने कि स्टेबिलिटी और ट्रैंक्विलिटी के लिए हमें प्री कंडीशंस हैं, क्योंकि चाइना के पास नौजवान जो हैं, यूथ, इंडिया के पास यूथ है, ह्यूमन रिसोर्स है। चाइना के पास इतना नौजवान जो है वो कम पड़ गया है। उससे क्या है कि अगर वो एंगेज रखेगा हमारे साथ बॉर्डर पे अपना आर्मी को, जहाँ हम वहाँ एंगेज रहेंगे, तो हम जो अदर सेक्टर्स हैं जैसे इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर्स हैं, जहाँ अदर चीज़ें हैं, उस पे हम डिफेंस पे हैं, जहाँ बाकी उस पे हम ब्रीथ नहीं ले पाएंगे। तो चाइना भी समझता है और इंडिया और चाइना के लिए ये ज़रूरी है कि वो, और बड़ी मेजर पॉपुलेशन वाले देश हैं, कि वो इस तरफ बढ़ें, और ये अच्छा स्टेप है। इसके साथ साथ हम इंटरनेशनल प्लेटफॉर्म्स भी हम शेयर करते हैं, जैसे आपका SCO है, जहाँ ब्रिक्स है, जहाँ ये हमारे एजेस हैं अदर बड़ी इकोनॉमीज़ के सामने। लेकिन जिस तरह हम फॉर्मा है, जहाँ आपने पूछा कि किन सेक्टर्स में हम बढ़ सकते हैं, सेमीकंडक्टर्स है, जहाँ रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी है, इसमें हम जो इस वक्त की ज़रूरत है, और क्लीन एनर्जी है, इस तरफ हम आगे बढ़ सकते हैं, और जिसमें इंडिया काफ़ी आगे बढ़ा है। जैसे हम एक बड़ी एक पावर निकल के आए हैं कि अमेरिका ने जैसे हम पे टैरिफ सिंगल फिर डबल प्रेशर डालने की कोशिश करी। हमारी अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ ज़्यादा बढ़ रही हैं। जितना अमेरिका हम पे प्रेशर डालेगा इतना ही हमारा अपॉर्चुनिटी बढ़ता है, क्योंकि अमेरिका और यूरोप में भी वो है, यूरोप पूरा हमें 23 देश हमारी तरफ देखते हैं, वो हमसे बिजनेस करना चाहते हैं। क्योंकि अमेरिका उनका ग्रीनलैंड की तरफ बढ़ रहा है, तो अमेरिका और उनके डिफरेंसेस हैं कहीं ना कहीं वो। तो हमें इस कम्प्लेक्स रिलेशन से चाइना के साथ हमारे अच्छे रिलेशन से चाइना को भी लाभ है, हमें भी लाभ है, और हम एक इन्फ्लुएंस, हमारा जो रीजनल इन्फ्लुएंस है और इंटरनेशनल जो हमारा एक अच्छी ताकत उभर के आएंगे, इस तरह हम आगे बढ़ेंगे।
Based on what you've said, I'll take the next question to Ambassador. Ambassador, it's said, and especially in context of the ever-changing geopolitics, you have no permanent enemies, you have no permanent friends. I seek your apology well in advance, because in no way I want to give the credit of our diplomats who worked so hard on bringing us to this stage of a thaw with China. But the buzz and the talk about the US President Donald Trump having played a significant role in bringing India and China together is making the headline. It's being said that the tariff war unleashed by President Donald Trump has brought India and China together. From a diplomatic lens, sir, did you see both countries, both neighbors, both Asian giants looking at it as an opportunity to perhaps get back and extend cooperation in numerous ways which can ultimately benefit people of both sides?
Let me begin by saying that we should not let China-India relations be a subset of our relations with third countries. And it is in China's interest to realize that by keeping border issue alive and building Pakistan as a counterpoise to India, they have neither succeeded in stubbing India's growth nor managed to get more stability. If the present situation, contemporary situation, where both countries face challenges, if that brings about a realization that there, on the part of Chinese, that there should be a serious rethink, that will be a welcome opportunity. Otherwise, this will be one more comma in a long process. Immediately, I think that what they can do is to open up their doors to the Indian exports, which we are trying to diversify in the aftermath of the tariff hike which America has announced. And it is also in China's interest to look for to diversify away from the American market. So there are some opportunities, and let's at least start with that. The larger background which I have mentioned will probably take a little more time.
Certainly, 4.5 years of standstill. Now we've begun to talk. There is a positive momentum that's been generated due to constant efforts. But Let's hope, as you said, it's not a comma and it's not a temporary thaw. It's just one of the steps towards a more long-lasting relationship. But in that context, Professor, let me quote the Chinese Foreign Minister. He did acknowledge, following his meeting with the National Security Advisor, that the setbacks of the last 4.5 years have not been in the interest of people of either of the nations. How important or how significant are these acknowledgements in shaping future negotiations, and in this context with China, with a country that we need as much as they need us? We are not just neighbors, but we are two leading economies and interdependent on each other.
We have to wait and watch what the reassessment in China is. But in the recent times, we have seen over 9 million videos were released by Quancha, a social networking site in China, criticizing India in the India-Pakistan conflict just about 2 months ago, May 7th to 10th. Secondly, there are also reports, including day before yesterday, there was a report by, it's a pen name which was mentioned in the Haisu. There is a pen name of an author, generally a high-level party cadre. Writes with that kind of pen name. We don't know the veracity, but mentioning about the burdens of the Trump administration's tariffs on India, and India is more malleable in the sense of being, becoming pro-China in this context of tariff increase. Right. So we have different views within China on this. So we have to wait and watch whether Mr. Wang Yi's statement would result in any positives for the bilateral relations. If this is regrettable, last 4.5 years, we need to see some progress on various issues that India has been asking for. Trade deficits to be reduced. This is a demand in 2010, not now. 15 years, for the past 15 years, we have been asking for trade deficits to be reduced. We are not asking for the moon. Those issues we used to discuss before Nuclear Supplies Group membership, United Nations Security Council membership endorsement. China is the only country which doesn't endorse the, we are not discussing these issues. We are discussing mundane issues. Even mundane issues are not being resolved. So I think we need to wait for a while to see what's the progress on the ground. And for example, on the border, we have no de-escalation and de-induction. Powerful offensive equipment is mobilized on the border. They have not been removed yet. So we need to see our ISR capabilities have to detect if there is any, and then suggest in these dialogues that we need to actually move. We need to walk the talk.
Absolutely. Following Kazan, there was some movement. Let's hope that at the high-level dialogues that take place in future, there will be a push towards achieving all of these objectives. But now all eyes are on Prime Minister Modi's visit to China to attend the SCO Summit. What realistic outcomes should we have, or can India leverage the positive energy that's being generated in the improved relationships at platforms like the SCO, even if it's a multilateral forum? Can India make its point about lots of things, not just improving bilateral relations with China, but perhaps making China agree to a lot of things that India wants, and particularly in context of terrorism, cross-border terrorism emanating from Pakistan?
I think the SCO meeting will be significant because generally we have 4 items on the SCO agenda. Energy security, which is a burning topic given the tariffs that have been imposed on India. Secondly, counter-terrorism, which has been raised. Raksha Mantri raised this issue 2 months ago. The bilateral economic and cultural, economic issues between the SCO states. Finally, multipolarity, which we are wedded to that idea of a just world order, and so multipolarity will also be raised. So the Prime Minister's visit, I think, to Tianjin would be significant to renew those strategic communication between the two leaders. But we have not had any news so far about a third informal summit after the Wuhan and Mahabalipuram meetings. So that indicates that there is still, this is a work in progress.
Ambassador, looking ahead, and especially in context of the upcoming SCO Summit, of course, we would like to hear your thoughts on the expectations on what could be on the agenda. What would you particularly consider a realistic and meaningful outcome from the upcoming visit of the Prime Minister to China, not just in context of India's overall engagement with the neighboring country, but also in the larger interest of regional security, regional stability?
SCO does not have any impact on the security in our region. What impacts the security of our region is Chinese support to Pakistan and the Chinese presence on our northern borders. These are outside the SCO framework. Now, there are two interesting questions. Let me just highlight them. Wang Yi, the foreign minister, is headed to Pakistan tomorrow for a strategic dialogue with that country. How do Chinese look at Pakistan's flirtation with US? General Asif Munir has been, strutting about or boasting about this tremendous change in their relationship, and Pakistan has nominated President Trump for a Nobel Prize. This must be giving Chinese something to think about, their relationship with the country they have bankrolled for such a long time, turning out to be such an unreliable partner. The second issue which the Chinese have to worry about is how are Russia-US relations are going to turn out if the Ukraine war issue is resolved. The Chinese leverage over Russia will be much less, and they will need friends like India. And the third issue is how does China's equation with US works out? President Trump has extended the truce in the tariff war. And interestingly, while US has targeted India for buying Russian oil, it has given China a reprieve, even though China, if you look at last 3 years' perspective since Ukraine war broke out, has been a bigger purchaser of Russian oil. And even more interesting, America has left out Europe, which spent more money buying Russian LNG last year than aid to Ukraine. So these are interesting times, and these are larger questions which are outside the SCO framework, but will have an impact on the trajectory followed by these three countries which will meet in SCO. I think in the short run, we do not expect a great deal. At this stage, SCO Summit outcomes, if you have a look, they present an alternate view of the world to the West. I have dealt with multilateral issues for 8 years in the ministry. My own feeling is that this time the outcome will be very mild, because both countries, despite all the uncertainties, Russia and China, do not want to give up their America option. And that brings me to the point that for us also, America is not the problem. We run a $40 billion surplus with them. Our problem is China, with which we have a $97 billion deficit. And I hope our Chinese friends understand that, they cannot expect that they turn to India when they are in difficulty, and then they turn their back on us and go back to their, their protege in the neighborhood. These answers to these questions will be clearer after a couple of days after Wang Yi's visit to Pakistan.
I think that's what Dr. Jaishankar meant when he emphasized on mutual interest. Perhaps it's time that China also looks at the fact that it needs India as much as India needs China. What the outcomes of the SCO Summit will be, we'll have to wait and watch until the 1st of September. But for now, we'll have to wind up the conversation. The important takeaway is that the Chinese Foreign Minister is in India. It's a significant visit. He's had meetings with Prime Minister Modi, with the External Affairs Minister, with the National Security Advisor. There is a positive momentum that's been generated over the last few months in the India-China relationship, and we hope that it's just the beginning of the long-lasting relationship for India and China, the two Asian giants. With that, we'll have to wrap up the conversation. Thank you once again, Ambassador, Professor and Mr. Ali, for joining us on this edition of Perspective, sharing your thoughts, your views with us and our viewers. And to you viewers, thank you very much for your time as well.
To watch more programs of Sansad TV, subscribe to our YouTube channel and don't forget to like and share them.